One of the most dramatic episodes of the Reformation of the Church unfolded in England, beginning about 20 years after the movement's start and stemming from a marriage involving King Henry VII, who reigned from 1485 to 1509 and had 3 sons. The eldest, Prince Arthur, was wed to Catherine of Aragon, daughter of Ferdinand II of Aragon, in a move to solidify an alliance between England and Spain. However, Arthur's untimely death soon after marrying Catherine jeopardized this strategic alliance. When King Henry VII died in 1509, his second son, also named Henry, ascended the throne as King Henry VIII. Eager to maintain the Spanish alliance, Henry VIII married his brother's widow, Catherine. The union initially seemed fruitful, producing 6 children, but only one, Mary, survived infancy. As time passed and it became apparent that Catherine could no longer have children, Henry's desperation for a male heir led him to pursue a marriage with Anne Boleyn, a court lady-in-waiting. However, the Catholic Church's strict rules on marriage annulments posed a significant obstacle. Only the Pope, seated in distant Rome, had the authority to dissolve a marriage. At the time, political dynamics made it highly improbable for the Pope to accommodate Henry's desire for an annulment. Catherine's nephew, Charles V, Holy Roman Emperor, was one of Europe's most influential figures, and the Pope was reliant on his support. Thus, Henry's marital ambitions were caught in a web of political and religious complexities that would eventually lead to a profound and tumultuous Reformation in England. When the Pope refused to annul his marriage, Henry initiated what became known as the King's Great Matter, igniting a major religious and political shift in England. Displeased with the Catholic Church's rigid practices and inspired by the broader sentiments of reformers like Martin Luther, Henry pursued a more personal and radical path. He aimed to create the Church of England, over which he would preside as supreme head, granting himself the power to annul his marriage to Catherine. Initially, Cardinal Thomas Wolsey attempted to manage Henry's ambitions, but was eventually replaced by Thomas More, and then Thomas Cromwell, who proved more adept at implementing the king's directives. A series of laws were enacted, curtailing the Catholic Church's financial privileges in England and affirming the monarch's supremacy over religious affairs. The pivotal Act of Supremacy in 1534 cemented this change, proclaiming the monarch as the head of the Church of England and severing England's ties with the Catholic Church. This transition was fraught with conflict. The Treasons Act was introduced, penalizing any dissent against the king's new religious authority. Beginning in 1536, the Valor Ecclesiasticus survey assessed church finances, laying the groundwork for the widespread dissolution of the Monasteries Act. This act led to the closure of over 800 religious institutions, enriching the royal treasury with their lands and assets. While many in England viewed the monastic institutions as corrupt and welcomed their dissolution, significant opposition emerged. The Pilgrimage of Grace in 1536 was a notable uprising against these religious upheavals. Despite an initial settlement, King Henry eventually responded with force, executing around 200 leaders of the rebellion, underscoring the serious challenges to these reforms. In 1539, the translation of the Bible into English democratized religious knowledge, profoundly changing religious practices and personal devotion. Under King Henry VIII's son, King Edward VI, these reforms intensified. Archbishop Thomas Cranmer, a key figure in the English Reformation, introduced the Book of Common Prayer, standardizing Protestant services across England. Services were now held in English, not Latin, and traditional Catholic practices like the veneration of saints, relics, and clerical celibacy were abandoned. These changes significantly redefined religious life in England, reflecting the sweeping impact of the Reformation on society and worship. King Edward VI's reign was indeed brief, ending with his premature death from tuberculosis at just 15 years old in 1553. His successor, Mary I, Henry VIII's eldest daughter by Catherine of Aragon, was a staunch Catholic. She fervently sought to reverse the Protestant reforms of her father and half-brother. Repealing their laws, including the Act of Supremacy, Mary reinstated the Catholic Church's dominance in England. Her reign was marked by the execution of over 280 Protestants, including notable figures like Thomas Cranmer, leading to her infamous nickname, Bloody Mary. Despite the intense religious shifts of the era, the general populace in England often reacted with relative passivity, showing minimal response to the drastic changes instituted by Henry, Edward, and Mary. While not completely peaceful, England's internal religious conflicts were subdued compared to the broader European context of religious wars. Mary's reign brought a brief resurgence of Catholicism, but her death in 1558 opened the door for her half-sister, Elizabeth I, to shape a predominantly Protestant England. Ascending to the throne, Queen Elizabeth revitalized the Reformation with a more moderate and inclusive approach, gaining considerable popularity. However, she encountered opposition from devout Catholics who opposed her Protestantism and Puritans who criticized her leniency towards Catholics. Despite these challenges, Elizabeth's reign was a time of substantial strengthening and growth of the English Reformation, solidifying the country's religious direction for generations to come. Elizabeth I reinstated many religious reforms from the reigns of her father, Henry VIII, and half-brother, Edward VI, through a series of acts between 1559 and 1563. Tactically changing her title from Supreme Head to Supreme Governor of the Church, she signaled a shift towards political rather than spiritual supremacy, a move intended to appease Catholics. Despite her efforts to balance differing faiths, Elizabeth faced criticism from both Catholics and Protestants. On the international stage, she aligned England with Protestant causes, supporting movements in Ireland, France, and the Netherlands, positioning England against Catholic powers like Mary, Queen of Scots, and Philip II of Spain. Elizabeth adeptly managed these complex and often hostile relationships. Back home, Elizabeth enforced attendance at Anglican services, penalizing non-attendance to solidify the Church of England's role, while Catholic practices were banned. The 39 Articles of 1571 further defined Anglicanism's doctrinal stance, edging it closer to what it is today. The English Reformation, often initially linked to Henry VIII's marital desires, was a multifaceted and politically driven process. Henry's main aim extended beyond his personal marital issues. He sought to diminish the Catholic Church's power in England and reallocate its wealth to the crown. By the end of his reign, he had largely achieved this, setting the stage for a more robust England. Under Elizabeth I, this trajectory continued, paving the way for England's emergence as a global power. The Reformation's urgency and the decisions made during it significantly shaped England's destiny, hinting that without these changes, England's status as a world empire might have been markedly different. We've now reached the end of our captivating four-part series on the historical journey of Christianity. Our exploration began with the first episode, where we delved into Christianity's formative years. The second episode brought us into the complexities of the East-West Schism. In our third episode, we provided an in-depth analysis of the Reformation movement. Finally, our concluding episode offered a comprehensive look at the history of the Anglican Church. Thank you for tuning in. If you found this series enlightening, please give us a like. For those joining us for the first time, remember to subscribe and activate the notification bell, ensuring you don't miss our future content. We're eager to hear your thoughts and questions about the series, so feel free to leave a comment below. Your insights are valuable to us, and we strive to respond to as many comments as we can. Feel free to share this video with anyone who might find it interesting. We look forward to seeing you in our next video.